After 5 hours in Atomfall, I finally found one of the most important characters, a scientist who promised to help me get out of the quarantine zone I'd mysteriously ended up in. Not for free, of course. First, I had to run some errands as you would in any other RPG. There was another thing I could do though, just kill him. I could do that for several reasons. To take all of his belongings, to get rid of a character I didn't trust, or simply to continue the killing spree I'd started at some point. The reasons don't really matter. The thing is, I could kill one of the story characters who was supposed to help me reach my goal, someone directly relevant and vital to one of the possible endings. You can go even further if you decide to, for some reason. Atomfall allows you to kill every, and I can't stress this enough, every NPC in the game. Of course, other games have given players a similar opportunity. Fallout New Vegas and The Outer Worlds come to mind, as well as immersive scenes like Prey and Dishonored, but they rarely make this approach completely legitimate. You can kill NPCs in those games, yes, but doing so usually leads to failed quests or respawned characters. In The Outer Worlds, for example, you can grab a PDA from a corpse to get the same info you'd get from dialogue. But that's basically it. There is no complex gameplay system built around it. Atomfall, on the other hand, is designed so that killing any character doesn't feel like an exploit or a way to break the game. But you can't just make all characters mortal in the game like this and expect it to work, right? You need NPCs the player can interact with. Quest givers, traders, informants, navigators, or do you actually? We'll figure that out soon enough. But first, let me explain what Atomfall is, in case you haven't heard about the game. Atomfall is a post-apocalyptic action RPG adventure, but a peculiar one. It's inspired by a real-life event known as the Windscale Fire, a 1957 nuclear accident, the worst in the United Kingdom's history. The consequences of that fire were undoubtedly disturbing, with radioactive fallout spreading across the UK and other parts of Europe, but not on an apocalyptic scale. Atomfall presents an alternate reality, where the accident had far more severe consequences, leading to the creation of a massive quarantine zone and raising many questions about what really happened at the Windscale nuclear site in 1957. You'll eventually be able to find some answers, but at the beginning of the game, you're far from them, of course. You start in a strange bunker, with no tools for survival and a poorly timed bout of amnesia. A man in a hazmat suit, who has clearly been through something horrific, appears and asks you to find a mysterious place called the Interchange, claiming it's crucial to preventing something even worse from happening. And it would be nice to get out of the quarantine zone too, and if the Interchange is your way out, then off you go.
Back the way you came! Go on!
This is your final warning. Leave.
Let's get this straight first. I don't think killing every character in a video game is a good thing, nor do I imply it's how you should play Atomfall. It's obviously an extreme option, something for a second or a third playthrough when you want to test the game's limits. The thing is, the possibility of killing every character is interesting even if you never use it. It reveals a lot about the game's design and narrative philosophy, how everything is structured to make this freedom possible. So, how do you create a game where the player can kill any NPC and still finish the story? Well, the developers at Rebellion came up with a surprising idea. They removed two elements fundamental to most games of this type: main quests and main characters.
So we said, well, what happens if there's just no main quest? What does that look like? What if there's no main story characters? If there's characters that are optional to interact with? If they've got stories and it's up to you whether you uncover them or not? What if it's not spoon-fed to you?
The design of Atomfall is a direct answer to all of those questions. Instead of main quests, or quests in general, you have stories and pieces of information, all equally relevant to achieving your goal. Instead of main characters, you have, well, just characters, all equally optional to interact with. Some of them know more about what's going on than others, but none can give you a definite path to follow. They only offer fragments of information, and your task is to make sense of it all. You've probably guessed where this is going. In Atomfall, you play the role of a detective, not literally but figuratively. You need to solve the puzzle of how to escape the quarantine zone, piecing together fragments of intel. While doing so, you might uncover stories about the events surrounding the Windscale plant, but it's up to you whether you get involved or not. The thing is, you'll probably want to. The world of Atomfall is full of mysteries, and the first one awaits you as soon as you leave the bunker. A bright red British telephone booth, standing alone in a green dale placed by who knows who, immediately draws your attention. As you approach, the phone suddenly rings and a harsh voice mutters something strange.
Poppadom must die.
We'll come back to that later. But now let's explore more mysteries within the quarantine zone. There are plenty, as I said. Some await you in Windham Village, the only town in Atomfall. It's under military supervision, and you can go straight to the commander if you like. That's the obvious choice. But you will probably want to explore first. There are a few shops, a pub, and a church along the way, and everywhere you'll find characters with their own stories. Each direction is optional, yet whichever you choose, you'll inevitably head towards one of the endings. For example, visiting the bakery leads to information about strange illnesses linked to voices people hear in their heads, and clues about the entrance to the interchange. Going directly to the commander gets you details about a captured doctor named Garrow, who might know something about the events behind the quarantine. Heading to the church drops you into a crime scene, a perfect environment for a detective and a great opportunity to uncover the town's secrets. Once you dive into one of these stories, you'll be swept into a whirlwind of events, clues, and evidence leading to the finale. You'll find the interchange and learn what really happened inside the nuclear plant. You'll uncover people's secrets and the mystery behind the otherworldly voice. And yes, you'll meet the cultists who live in the woods and build massive wicker men. You'll experience all this one way or another. In fact, one way or another could be Atomfall's anthem, the reason its optional characters and stories exist. There aren't one or two key NPCs who secure your path to the ending once you talk to them. The whole narrative is structured like a web of interconnected information. In most RPGs, the structure looks like this: a main route with main NPCs and side quests branching off. In Atomfall, it looks more like a spiderweb. You can approach it from any side, and eventually you'll end up in the center, with all the information you need to finish the game. Like, kill the commander, and you'll still learn about Dr. Garrow from another character, her colleague. Or ignore the cultist informant, and you'll still find your way to the eerie Wicker Man. And if you decide to kill or ignore most of the characters, well, there is a backup system for that too. As a safety measure, in case players miss NPCs or key dialogues by accident, Rebellion added clues scattered throughout the world. Take the PA systems around Windham Village, for example. They broadcast valuable information and highlight important intel.
Prisoner Garrow has escaped.
The announcements work in other ways too. Sometimes the main character, like other NPCs, hears strange voices in their head. These voices are cleverly integrated into the story, but also serve as navigational tools, guiding you toward the ending. First directing you to an old woman and cultists in the forest, then providing new leads until you eventually reach the credits. But the most valuable sources of information, besides dialogues, are notes. One of the most overused narrative tools in video games, yes, but in Atomfall they actually serve a purpose. They're your most reliable leads. Since you're basically a detective here, the notes give you meaningful details, coordinates for hidden locations, and pieces of the bigger mystery you're solving. Like, remember that crime scene in the church in Windham Village? Well, to find the killer, you'll need to follow the instructions left in the message found on the victim's body. Okay, but what happens if the player decides to kill or ignore every character and skip every note? Is there still an ending? That's where the red telephone booth comes in. It's both a navigational tool and a narrative element, and the ultimate fallback for players who test the game's limits. These phones are scattered all over Atomfall. If you dare to answer one, a mysterious voice will give you just enough information to keep moving toward the end. But that's not even the best part. You can ignore the phones and still finish the game. Even if you avoid every single narrative clue, the interconnected design ensures you'll still reach an ending, a specific one, made for this kind of playthrough. Practically every location you visit is somehow linked to what you need to progress. I won't spoil it, as there are videos on YouTube showcasing this fascinating experiment, but I encourage you to try it yourself. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and let me know what you think about Atomfall and its narrative structure in the comments below. See you soon.